Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Manitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are back again after a hiatus, an enforced hiatus, with a reading of Sri Guru and His Grace by Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. So we left off last week at the end of chapter 11. So we're on chapter 12 now, entitled Servant of the Servant. Devotee, today is my birthday. According to the almanac, it's the most auspicious day of the year. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, no, this is the happiest and most fortunate day. Oh, sorry, the most inauspicious day of the year.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It makes a big difference.
Yes.
So the devotee says, today is my birthday, and according to the almanac, which I presume he means the Panchanga, it is the most auspicious day of the year. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, a most inauspicious day of the year. God. Inauspicious, bad. It's the worst day of the year, according to this devotee's reading of the almanac. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, no, this is the happiest and most fortunate day, because on this day you came to Guru and Krishna. Many birthdays have already passed, but this birthday has brought you in connection with Krishna. So this day should be respected not only by your disciples, friends, and relatives. You should also have respect for this day. Krishna has blessed you. Time is also described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in a verse recorded by Ramananda Rai. Ye kaleva svapane dekinu vamsi vadane. Srimati Radharani says, when in my trance I came to have a divine vision of Krishna, two enemies suddenly appeared, ecstasy and also a feeling which is corresponding to extreme love in complete self-surrender. In that state, I could not see Krishna very clearly. These two enemies disturbed me. Ecstasy was my enemy, for it made me self-forgetful, and my greed for his touch was another enemy. They did not allow me to have a clear vision of Krishna, so my thirst for seeing him was unquenched. This is a little similar to what Tridandi Swami was touching on yesterday, if you remember. He was talking about the same thing as ecstatic emotions overwhelming the devotee when they come into the proximity of Krishna. And that the devotee actually condemns those emotions because they cloud the clarity of their experience of Krishna. And so in that instance, the devotee is praying for time to disappear. Well, time is begging time, just go, disappear, so that this treasured experience can be drawn out, so that it may not be clouded. This precious experience is not clouded by these emotions, that it may have better longevity. A divine vision of Krishna. If by good fortune I have another chance to have his darshan, divine vision, then what should I do? Avoiding Krishna, I shall instead try to worship... Oh, here we go, right. Avoiding Krishna, I shall instead try to worship time. Perhaps Maharaj has inadvertently put this into his new book. Anyway. Avoiding...
Worshipping Krishna, I worship time.
Right.
Yes, that's the statement. It's a verse from...
No. What I just said is that Maharaj, who was discussing this topic yesterday... regarding the content in his new book. He was reading from that.
Okay.
And then when I turned the page, I realized that it's talking about the exact same thing. I thought it was talking about the same principle, but in a different time, using different words, etc. But it seems to be the exact same conversation.
So he's inadvertently...
Yeah.
I see. He doesn't remember.
I think so. It's quite possible, yeah. Because do you remember, Kat? He was talking about praying to time, for time to cease. Yeah, remember that?
I think so.
Yeah. So it's possible. I'll have to mention it to him. Avoiding Krishna, I shall instead try to worship time. I shall worship that moment, that minute, that second in which I have divine vision of Krishna. I shall try to propitiate time so that time itself may stay for some time. Yeah, it's the exact same one. With garlands, sandalwood paste, and jewels, I shall try to worship time and not Krishna. If time stands still, being propitiated with my respectful behavior, then Krishna will remain. In this way, I shall try to fix the time. You please stay here for some time. Krishna is showing himself. Time, you be eternal here. Otherwise, like lightning, Krishna comes and vanishes. We worship the time, the land, the place, the paraphernalia of Krishna. Anything in connection with Krishna is chinmaya, transcendental. The paraphernalia of Krishna is worthy of our worship. In fact, we shall have to honor Krishna's paraphernalia even more than Krishna himself. That is the clue to success. Krishna's abode, his paraphernalia, and his devotees have a relationship with Krishna, Krishna Sambandha. They are Krishna's devotees, and he is at their disposal. So, if we can propitiate them, they will take interest in us and take us into that realm. Otherwise, we are helpless. In the Padma Purana, it is said, Aradhananam sarvesham Vishnur aradhanam param. Once Parvati Devi asked Lord Shiva, of all kinds of worship, whose worship is the best? And Lord Shiva told her plainly, the worship and devotional service of Lord Narayan, Vishnu, is the highest. Parvati became a little mortified and disappointed, thinking, but I am serving Shiva, so I hold a lower position. Then the next line came, Tasmat parataram devi tadiyanam samarchanam. But higher than the worship of Narayan is worship of the devotees of Lord Narayan. That is even greater than devotion to the Lord himself. Then Parvati smiled, thinking, I am serving the devotee of the Lord. Shiva is a devotee. Vaishnavanam yatha shambhu. So I am doing the best thing. This is also confirmed by Krishna in the Adi Purana. Yeme bhakta jana partha name bhaktas chate jana mad bhakta nam chaye bhaktas teme bhakta tama mata. Those who worship me directly are not real devotees. Real devotees are those who are devoted to my devotees. And this principle is true in our own experience. It is said, if you love me, love my dog. How intense one's love for his master must be if he can love the master's dog. And if he loves the dog only because it is his master's dog, not that he wants to take the dog away for himself. He loves the dog only because its relationship with the master. He loves it not with the idea of independent love for the dog, but because it is the master's dog. This is the higher test of our love than simply to love the master. This will test whether we are really lovers. Krishna is more pleased if he sees that his servant is being served. Why? Because his servant always serves him, but he won't take anything in return from Krishna. Krishna tries to give his devotees something, but they won't take it. There's a verse that comes to mind, a beautiful verse to express this. Let's see if it's quoted here in the next. From Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is in the pastime of Durvasa Muni running from the Sudarshan Chakra, and he takes shelter of Vishnu, and Vishnu tells him why he's being chased and explains the exalted status of the devotee. And one of the verses is Aham bhakta paratino hyasvatantra iva dvija. That's the one, isn't it? Yeah. Aham bhakta paratino sarubher grasta hridayo bhaktir bhakta janapriya. so that the devotee is, Krishna is independent and free, but there's one condition in which he's not independent and free, and that is in his obligation to his devotees, to his true devotees. He feels then, he doesn't feel independent, he feels heavily obliged to try and serve and reciprocate with his devotees, in fact, to subordinate himself to his devotees. So the traditional concept of God is omnipotent, but in this sense he's not free. He feels compelled to surrender to, in fact, and please and serve his devotees. So that's a need. So anyone who comes and fulfills that need actually invites the blessings of Krishna much more than any other. In other words, a person that comes and serves the devotee, then they are fulfilling Krishna's desire of service to his own devotees, and thus it invites powerful mercy of Krishna. Krishna tries to give his devotees something, but they won't take it. They have no aspiration to fulfill, no petition to enter in the course of their service. They want only cent-per-cent service. There is no possibility for Krishna to award any remuneration there. He can't find the slightest hole in their devotional service through which some remuneration can be pushed. His devotees are wholesale servants and nothing but. Krishna tries his best to give something to his devotees in return for their service, but he fails. So when Krishna sees that his desired aim of rewarding his servants is being done by someone else, he becomes indebted to that person, thinking, what I wanted to do for my servant, he is doing. I wanted to do that, but failed. It was not accepted. But now someone else is doing that same thing I wanted to do. Krishna is more favorable to the devotee who serves his servant. Then Krishna comes to serve him. That is the underlying purpose of his saying, those who are devotees of my devotees, they are the real devotees of my heart. So, Bhakta Puja, worship of the devotees, is the best kind of worship. This statement is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Vedas, and by Vrindavan Das Thakur in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Amara Bhaktera Puja, Ama Haite Bara. Bhakta Puja, worship of the devotees, is advocated everywhere. At the same time, we should try to understand who is a devotee. That is also to be ascertained. What is the sign of a real devotee? So devotees should be worshipped. That's a given. That is an established premise. There's no doubt concerning that. But then you must define the target and the eligibility of the target. So who is a devotee? And in this sense, there is a gradation. And in the Upadeshamrita, there is some elaboration on the point. In the 5th verse, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadureta. Yeah, dikshasti chet pranatapischa bhajantamisham shushrushe bhajanapyam. Nindari shunya hridamepsita sanghobhya. Krishna says, those who say they're directly... what is the sign of a real devotee? So Krishna says, those who say they're directly devoted to me are not devotees proper. Those who are devotees of my devotees are my real devotees. We should try to follow the principle of this saying. This is not a perverted remark, but there is some genuine reality in it. If we look for its inner meaning, we will reach the conclusion our Guru Maharaj has announced. He said, we are Shuddha Shakta, worshippers of the pure potency, not the mundane potency. We worship the potency who is wholesale dedicated to the potent without retaining her individual independence as a separate entity at all, who is cent% dependent on Krishna. Such a potency as this is very, very rarely to be conceived. The direct approach to Krishna is improper. One must approach him through the proper channel, through the devotees. That is the real approach. Therefore, Gaudiya Math eliminates Mirabai and so many other apparently great devotees from the category of real devotees, because although they are mad in praise of Krishna, they have little regard for the real devotees of Krishna. Guru Maharaj has gone to the extent of saying that one who feels they can approach Krishna directly, that is more or less illusory. It's not of actual spiritual substance. It's a difficult stance for some people to accept that Mirabai, that's what is it called, Sambhog or something, direct connection with Krishna. And specifically Mirabai, like she has, particularly some Indians that are familiar with Bhakti tradition in Vrindavan, and say, what, not Mirabai? Not in your parampara? And then some say that it's simply coincidental that she's not in the parampara. Even some devotees, it's just coincidental. There's no actual reason for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They obviously haven't read Sri Guru and His Grace. What is it? Direct connection. Sambhog, right? Is that what it's called? I think it is.
Sambhog is usually, the way I've heard Sambhog used is like union. So, Sambhog and Vikralampa, I hear it in another context.
Right.
The thing is, she is a great devotee. Not that we want to discredit her, but one way Gurudev says it in her Real Truth, something like she has 1% compared to like the line that our gurus are giving. She has 1%.
Okay.
Potency, something like that. So that is one way we can harmonize it, just in a harmonious way. Just that if you can do that, you can approach Krishna directly, you will get something. And compared to, everything else going on in the world, that would make you a great devotee of Krishna. No doubt she has devotion for Krishna. But it's simply that if you eliminate that line of, Radharani and Gopis, then you won't get the same quality. It won't be the same. It's something much, far, far superior going into the camp of Radharani.
Spiritual bureaucracy. Krishna is not alone. A king is always present with his entourage, his great establishment. If one is really to approach the king, it must be done through the proper channel. Krishna is always surrounded by a big hierarchy, a big bureaucracy, and one cannot approach Krishna directly. He whose approach is real must select a proper channel, but he cannot but praise those devotees and revere them for their magnanimity. It is only by their help that we can get the nearness of Krishna. Should we think that it is possible that one can take a jump across the whole system and approach the king? It is unreal. Someone may be externally engaged in such a way that apparently he is a great devotee of Krishna, but if he eliminates the devotees, that devotion has not taken real shape. It is a vague thing. He is far away from Krishna. Suppose we take as an example the highest peak in the Himalayas, Mount Everest. We can see Mount Everest from far off, but to approach Mount Everest, we must pass through so many closer mountain peaks. When our approach to Mount Everest is genuine, we cannot avoid discovering the name and characteristic of other peaks surrounding Mount Everest. But from far off, we can see only Mount Everest and not the other peaks surrounding it. So, when we say that our connection is with Krishna alone, then we are far off. If we are to actually approach the king, we must approach him through his entourage. If we are actually to approach Everest, we cannot but have a connection with the nearer peaks surrounding that highest peak. So if we are practically engaged in approaching Krishna, our approach will be realistic only when we are engaged with the many devotees in different departments of service to Krishna. The real test of devotion. I noted when we were preaching in South India that whenever any gentleman who is a renowned devotee in a particular place approached our Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he used to ask such men, "Under whose guidance does your devotional service to Krishna go on?" Generally, they used to say, No, I am directly concerned with Lord Krishna and Lord Ram." Then, when they went away, we heard our Guru Maharaj say, "He has no devotion. That person was dismissed as an imitation devotee. That is a vague kind of devotion. It has not taken any particular shape because he is ignoring the ashraya, the shelter-giving devotees, in the positions surrounding the Lord." That is the great test of devotion. Otherwise, without taking shelter of a devotee, if one shows great devotion, what is his motive? Generally, they think, we want liberation, not the service of Krishna. To earn liberation, we are accepting the devotion of Krishna. That is a lower form of worship, worldly worship, not real worship of the transcendental plane. That is not eternal, but temporary. Devotion to the Lord must not be subservient to any other aim of life. The desire for liberation is one criterion of an imitation devotee. And another criterion...
Can you say that again?
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking that...
He says it.
So he says the desire for liberation is one criterion of an imitation devotee. So almost saying like the desire for liberation is a definition of an imitation devotee. It's one definition, one criterion. Because the Mayavadis will say, Yatamat Tatapat. That was a saying of Ramakrishna, I believe, specifically. Which became very popular in India, in Bengal. And so his followers will say, yes, Vivekananda achieved moksha through Vedanta, through the study of Jnana Yoga, and Yogananda achieved moksha through Kriya Yoga, and Swami Prabhupada achieved moksha through chanting Hare Krishna, and etc.
Oh, Krishna.
So I've seen that.
Save us.
I've seen that literally as a written opinion of a respected follower in there. He's not an official follower in the line, but he's a respected teacher, and he admires Ramakrishna and is a Mayavadi. So that's their approach, and Guru Maharaj is saying that that approach is that of an imitation. They're imitating bhakti. So they'll use bhakti as a tool to achieve their means, and then they'll become redundant. Then they'll discard bhakti. Like, all right, thank you very much. You've served your purpose. Now I'll drop you. It's like a rocket that goes up and has its booster jets, right? And then the booster jets they're jettisoned. So they jettison the bhakti at some stage, and like, yeah, no.
That's very funny.
And it does work. It's not as if bhakti cannot be utilized in that way. But Guru Maharaj is saying that is actually that is not entering into the transcendental plane. That's using bhakti as a vehicle to reach the Brahman impersonal plane, and so the bhakti is not eternal. There is no eternal bhakti, but real bhakti is by nature eternal. So by that definition, it cannot be real bhakti. It must be some kind of thing that bears some resemblance in terms of symptoms and external practices to bhakti, but in and of itself is not the genuine article. And even those practices where people may worship Krishna, as Guru Maharaj says here, with the desire for for impersonal liberation. Elsewhere it is said that such chanting is actually, Krishna feels it as not just discomfort, but as an attack of some kind. It's like arrows, I think, is the terminology used. Arrows to the body of Krishna. Such chanting is piercing Krishna and causing Krishna pain, because it's mimicking the activity of his pure devotees, but for a completely different purpose, for non-bhakti purpose. So it's almost hijacking the practice of bhakti to achieve what, in a sense, could be considered a selfish motive. Whereas a devotee, in the proper sense, is free from any personal consideration. There's an element of or a state of self-forgetfulness is achieved. So there is no selfish tinge involved in Shuddha Bhakti, including the desire for liberation, which you could say is very subtle selfishness in a sense. Yeah.
Srila Swami Maharaj, he has this really nice quote. Srila Shankara liked it a lot. It was his rendering of, that verse, Bhukti, Bhukti, Spriya, Javat, Ishatri, Vidarti. As long as these two witches of Bhukti and Mukti are living within the heart, then you cannot get Krishna Bhakti. Mm-hmm. So one nice way Swami Maharaj rendered it, as long as someone wants to become important, either spiritually or materially, they cannot get Bhakti. So the desire to be, the karma is lording over the gross material plane, and the other is a desire to be superior in a more subtle plane. They're both selfishness. One is more, deceptive, but it is more subtle and more dangerous actually because of that.
So Prabhupada is equating mukti with subtle pratishtha of a kind.
Desire to be important in a spiritual sense. To be superior.
One cannot attain bhakti if they want to be important.
Yeah, that's what's told in the beginning of Bhagavatam. Matsarya, near Matsa, only the near Matsa, the non-envious, they can get this. And free from the desire for distinction.
Yes, this is the subtlest of the three big obstacles to a lot of people focus on. What are the things, items to be avoided and guarded against in spiritual life? And so you'll ask someone, they go, oh, right, okay, yep, no meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Those four. That's what I was told, at least.
Covered.
Yeah. So those are the don'ts. What are the don'ts? They go, oh, those four things, they're the don'ts. You follow them, then that's a guaranteed ticket back to Godhead, you see, at the end of your life. That's all you need to do. Krishna consciousness is a scientific process. and then after a little while you realize, well, actually it's scientific, yes, but it's not that simplistic. It's not that basic. It's not necessarily that easy. It requires some internal purification, and that internal purification is, of course, to rid one of that bhukti and mukti, and so you may, at a deeper level, go once again, return to the question and ask yourself, what are the don'ts? What are the restrictions? What are those enemies to be recognized and tackled and dealt with and dissolved? And then the answer would inevitably have to be Kanak, Kamani, and Pratishtha. And of those three, then Pratishtha is definitely the most subtle, and it is the last to retire. It is the pratishta, the desire to establish oneself outside of a context of a relationship with the source, with the Supreme Soul, with Krishna. That is pratishta, and that leads then to the other grosser desires. Even though they have their subtle elements as well, they are by nature a little less subtle than pratishta, which is the first to manifest and drive one into this world of Maya with an aim to exploit. And these other two are the chief facilitators of that desire, of that initial pratishta. So you need money, and then to enjoy, to try and exploit or enjoy through some kind of connection with the opposite sex, or with the same sex. Seems very common these days, but either way, it's the same thing.
Is that the only way harmony can be translated, or is it? Because I've seen it rendered as sense enjoyment and also as mixing.
Yeah, so calm, the word which it comes from, generally means sensual desire, and often specifically of a kind of perhaps a lust-based type of sensuality. Generally speaking, karma. Yeah, lust. And that is if it's to be analyzed, that is the root, or that is the most powerful of sensual experiences in the world. Guru Maharaj says elsewhere, a sensual experience can be, I guess its intensity can be measured through how much it engages and activates the senses. So you could say a sexual experience is engaging all 5 of the senses. So essentially it captures the senses in terms of its engrossing of them, in terms of how much it activates and involves them. And in that sense, it is the strongest bondage of the soul to the physical world. And also the psychological world as well, because there's an element of that, of course. But that psychophysical entrenchment in the material world is characterized largely by sexual enjoyment.
So that's rock bottom.
It can be rock bottom, but it's not necessarily rock bottom, because intent is everything. So Krishna says in the Gita that he is sex according to religious principles. So it can be utilized as a transformational thing, but it must be done with awareness, and it must be done with it takes a conscious and aware and disciplined approach. It's an energy like anything, and like any kind of energy, it can be destructive or constructive. And so Krishna clearly says that it can be constructive, but at the same time, it has a huge potential to be destructive in the sense of taking one away from what can really make them happy, in terms of offering one what perceives to be a viable alternative to real eternal happiness. And if something is going to distract you from real eternal happiness, right, then that cannot be a desirable, welcome thing in your life.
Swami Maharaj did the whole talk on Moham and Krishna when somebody asked him about what is the personality of Cupid and how does it relate to Madan and Moham. He had a really good nice talk on Eros.
I'll have to check it out. And so Kanak as well, and then money is there to... Money facilitates that. And you'll find if you analyze it, a lot of people are chasing money so they can enhance their sensuality, their sensual experience. And their pratishta as well. So that all 3 are working in tandem, are working in a devious, mutual symbiosis type of thing to keep one locked down into the Maya Shakti. But definitely of the 3, the pratishta is the most subtle. And unless the pratishta is dealt with, there's always a chance of regression into the other 2, a desire for money and sensual enjoyment. But just as pratishta is the first to appear and bring the jiva away from Krishna, then pratishta is also the last to disappear as the jiva moves towards Krishna. It's also the last to disappear. Because one can analyze it and go, all right, yeah, if I think about it, I can do without sex. Yeah, I can get over that. And money, yeah, I could tackle that. But pratishta, that can be a different ball game. That can be tough.
Well,
But
the problem is when you can give up the other things, then your pratishta can increase.
right. Yeah.
Very difficult.
Good point. What else? So a little more enlightened Upadesh from you, please.
No, I mean that's the point. I've heard Gurudev talk about how actually one can be, if sometimes one can be in a better position if they're immersed in Kanak and Kamini, because it diminishes pratishta. If one is within the context of a struggling practitioner,
sure.
a sincere struggling practitioner. Of course, the other model you described is also very pervasive, of the three working together. But in the context of a struggling practitioner, then that struggle with the senses and material attraction, it can keep one very humble. Whereas if one has some ability to give them up, then that they disqualify themselves from real mercy. Actually, I mean, if they allow that to be a source of pratishta.
Yes, as one progresses or makes efforts to progress, then the tests inevitably become subtler and stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm coming towards the end of this chapter. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, I guess the only way you can really deal with that is from like doing everything under the pretense of work for your guru. Because you were saying that
Pretense. I think you don't mean pretense. You mean another word.
not for everything. But because you I can't remember exactly what you said before, but you said something like pratishta can sort of be. I think you gave a definition of it as like a perception of yourself being outside of the service of Krishna. That's paraphrasing it, can't remember. But the solution to that to always be trying to be in the relativity of your guru. I think I've heard the line like pratishta is for guru or something like Kamini is for Krishna, pratishta is for guru.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, woman is for Krishna, wealth is for Narayan, and glory and fame is for Gurudev. That's always a good surefire way of addressing those three obstacles.
Don't really understand it. I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Well, that mentally you will, offer these things in these places. Whatever pratishta we get, we will offer that to Gurudev. If the desire of association, the opposite sex, we think that's Krishna's department. It's not my department. And Lakshmi Devi, the Lord of Lakshmi, is Narayan. She is the goddess of virtue. But we will use that in the service of Gurudev also. Pratishta must be for Guru because Guru is the best devotee, and Krishna likes to glorify his devotees. Krishna likes his devotees to be number one. As we were just hearing, Krishna says, the worship of my devotee is superior to the worship of myself. So, Krishna just likes to play. He likes to enjoy. And all the fame and honor and respect to go to his devotees.
All right, we'll finish this chapter. Jai. So, devotion to the Lord must not be subservient to any other aim of life. The desire for liberation is one criterion of an imitation devotee, and another criterion is the neglect of elevated devotees. When the Lord alone is being worshipped, that is also false. These two kinds of apparent devotional practices, which are generally seen in the world, may be dismissed. But the world does not get any news of all these things. These two kinds of apparent devotional practices, right, desire for liberation and neglect of advanced devotees, which are generally seen in the world, right, they may be dismissed. But the world does not get any news of all these things. I don't know exactly what that means, that last sentence. Do you know?
I would like to hear it again.
Okay. The desire for liberation is one criterion of an imitation devotee, and another criterion is the neglect of elevated devotees. When the Lord alone is being worshipped, that is also false. These two kinds of apparent devotional practices, which are generally seen in the world, may be dismissed, which I take means that the genuine devotees may dismiss those who make a show of devotion but want liberation, or make a show of devotion but neglect elevated devotees. And wherever that's seen in the world, that may be dismissed. And then the last sentence is, but the world does not get any news of all these things.
Maybe he means this finer understanding, something, because people buy into these show bottle.
That must be what it means.
They don't.
They haven't heard the news.
Yeah, it's like saying, but most people are not aware of this.
Something like that, I think so, yeah.
Yes, most people fall for...
It's like some poetic, he's saying it kind of a poetic way. It seems to me.
Devotee. So the spiritual master is sometimes called the Ashraya Vigraha, the personality of whom one must take shelter. Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Yes, just as in the beginning one sees the forest from a distance, but in the end he enters the inner circle of the forest, so from far off Krishna alone appears to be the Ashraya, the giver of shelter. But when we approach Krishna more closely, we will find our shelter amongst his devotees. A real shelter is found within his inner circle of servitors, not with Krishna directly. We are of a vitiated nature, but there are those who are under no circumstance deviate from Krishna. They are the eternal paraphernalia of the Lord. They are not like us. They are eternally connected with Krishna. But we are sometimes coming and going away. We are unreliable servitors. That is our position. So we cannot claim the same position as the absolute servitors of the Lord. Under their guidance, we can be given the chance of service, so we must accept that position. We are recruits. We're not amongst the permanent servitors of Krishna. In case anyone has any ideas.
Just clear that.
We must perform our service under a bona fide superior. The new followers must be gradually accommodated under some bona fide permanent servitors in the land of Krishna. So very, very personal, as in very different to impersonal. That the Mayavad idea that all form and variety is done away with, is lost, disappears, dissolves into a formless Brahman. Whereas the Vaishnava conception is replete with form and quality and exchange of rasa, lila, service, bhakti. Very personal. And that is a key to activating, to trying to make some success of practice in bhakti, is to realize that it is personal. And so service and pleasing people is effective, and avoidance of displeasing or offending, that is contrary to one's spiritual interest. And that continues right up through the development of one's spiritual progression. Right, yeah. Any more contributions?
I was just reminded, Srila Maharaj mentioned those 2 points, the desire for liberation and to neglect superior devotees. And that's just, he was saying these are like hallmarks of imitation. This is how you can recognize others. Like that example, I think he told it there, Saraswati Thakur in South India. Who do you perform your worship under? Oh no, I directly worship Ram or Krishna. Oh, like cross out the name. Yeah, this is how I recognize him. But another point that he made once, he told, you remember that famous incident when Saraswati Thakur, he pronounced, oh, I've been to the whole of Vrindavan and I couldn't find a single Vaishnava. And everyone was very surprised, and the devotees mentioned one particular, maybe you remember his name.
Ananta Das Babaji or something.
Who was it?
I think wasn't it Ananta Babaji?
And so, Srila Maharaj at another time, and Saraswati Thakur said, oh, he is a Kanishta Adhikari. And then at another time, Srila Maharaj visited that man and observed him for some time. And he did this whole going, and there were a few points he mentioned which alerted his suspicions. He saw how he went into this trance and came out of it very quickly, things like this. But then the main thing that disqualified him was that he detected envy in him. That there was somebody said something, oh, this one Babaji, he's celebrating his 50th year as a Babaji in Vrindavan, or something like that. And he made an envious response, saying, "Oh, but he was a householder before. He was married before. I've never been, something like that." And so Srila Maharaj, he could detect, this envy. Then you can have a big wonderful show, but you're not free from envy. Non-envious is the first quality of Vaishnava.
Yes.
A real devotee.
It's such a crucial negative quality to be aware of and to try and tackle.
Yeah.
Because it has potential to spoil so much on many levels, like in terms of one's personal ability to practice in peace, because you'll never be peaceful if you have envy festering in your consciousness. And it also, and Guru Maharaj makes this quite clearly, is that it leaves one very vulnerable to Vaishnava aparad, because a lot of Vaishnava aparad is based on envy.
Yes.
Not necessarily all of it. Some of it can be inadvertent, but a lot of it is premised on envy. Not being able to accept and Guru Maharaj again gives this as an example of not being able to accept that Krishna may bestow his mercy on someone else that you personally deem as unfit for that mercy.
Right.
And so you're questioning their position or questioning their status or their right. Hang on. Questioning their... Let me just finish the sentence and then it's your turn. Questioning their right to receive mercy, etc. In other words, not being comfortable with the success of other devotees. That is a big problem. That's envy. And associating with people that are not free from envy is also not ideal. Because if someone is not free from envy, how are they going to eliminate that from you? The old adage, physician, heal thyself. Because if the physician is not healing themselves, then it casts doubt on whether they have the ability to heal others. And so the verse in Upadeshamrita lists, in terms of who one should serve and associate with, those that are free from envy. Nindari shunna, an absence of envy.
Yeah, it's very striking. That's how the pure devotee is qualified there. To be free from that tendency.
Yes. So when Guru Maharaj talks about das anudas, and he mentions here that we must, he says that not, we should, at the same time, we should try to understand who is a devotee. That is also to be ascertained. What is the sign of a real devotee? And so Rupa Goswami does give some breakdown of that when he says, okay, someone who's chanting Hare Krishna, give respect to them as a devotee. Someone who's initiated, there's a further level of respect. But really it's an internal thing. Someone whose heart has been purified from envy, from ninda, the desire to bite, to criticize, to find fault. Someone who's free from that, then they're worthy of being sought out, of being surrendered to, of associating with, in a very as deeply and intimately as possible, and of one labdhya, sangha labdhya. One should search out and hanker for their association, because it's very purifying and very powerful, and the spiritual advancement one can make in associating with them in a proper service attitude is huge. And those people that are free from envy can clean out one's own heart from envy as well. And that is one huge obstacle eliminated.
I was just going to say, what is this person's qualification to receive mercy? I was adding to a list you were giving before you were sort of giving different.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the point, isn't it? That's often Vaishnava aparad comes as a result of an inability to appreciate other devotees.
It's the very first qualification, really. That's mentioned right at Bhagavatam, right at the beginning of Bhagavatam. Who's qualified? Who can appreciate that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Who can celebrate that? Only those who are nirmansar, who are free from that need to put themselves in the center, to make themselves the Supreme Personality. Who can't tolerate that somebody else will be superior to themselves. It's the whole premise of Krishna consciousness, appreciation of the Lord and by extension of his devotees.
Yes, absolutely. And it is a little difficult at first. It's not easy necessarily, because it is a purification of some very deep-seated elements of samskara that exist in one's consciousness, in one's heart, and have probably been operating there for time immemorial. So we're actually going through a very, very potent cleanse. And so with all cleanses, there can sometimes be a healing crisis sometimes. But the desire to be appreciated is or the desire to appreciate others genuinely, without any concern about whether that's going to be returned in equal value, actually goes against the very drive, the deep drive of this world, which is to establish oneself above others.
Just the opposite.
It's exactly opposite. And so it can feel distasteful at first. And there's another verse in Upadeshamrita that talks about it in the context of chanting Hare Krishna. It's the similar principle, I think, is also applicable, but it's applicable here. Is that at first it can taste a little bitter. Tannama rupa charitari sitapya vidya pito patapta, that one, right? Rasnasya charochikanu kinfadara. Yes. Tannama rupa charitari sitapya vidya.
You're mixing the first word there. It's syat.
Syat Krishna nama charitari, is that it?
Yeah.
And then the next one is Tan nama rupa charitari sukirtananu.
Yeah.
That's number 8 or something, 9. Yeah, so it's what? Syat Krishna nama charitari sitapya vidya pitopatapta rasanasya charochikanu kinvadarad anudinam kalushaya vajashta svadvikramad bhavati tad gadamulahantri. That one.
I'm not sure. I think you might.
Yeah, no, that's the one. That's what I'm thinking of. Syat Krishna Nam. So Krishna Nam can at first seem a little bitter. Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Sitapya Vidya. From a position of avidya, from a position of ignorance, it can feel bitter. But just as like with a condition of jaundice, when the liver is malfunctioning, then tradition that gives like rock candy, perhaps some medicated rock candy, and that would taste bitter. But with continued administration of the medicine, the rock candy will have a sweet taste again. So it will return to its proper taste, and ultimately what will happen is Svadvikramad Bhavati Tad Gadamulahandri, that at the root, the mula, everything will be pulled out once and for all. It's kind of like a cleanse that will happen once and for all. The cleanse to finish all cleanses. You never need to do it again because it's been pulled out at the root. So the same thing can happen with like tackling, for example, Matsarya, is that it does go against this programming that is the kind of the software that drives operation in this world. It is going against that. So at first it can taste bitter, but with continued practice, then the actual sweetness that is inherent in doing the opposite, in giving praise without any desire for selfish recognition oneself, that will come out. And when that has been properly achieved, then the whole, that software program that is driving our experience in this world is deleted once and for all. All right. Any more? Should we finish? Let's finish.
Wonderful.
Okay. Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhadev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Do you want to sing?
Hare Nama Krishna.
Jai Sabharikara Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Gadadhar Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sri Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Samaveda Vaishnav Mandala Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitya Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.